Hey, Chris, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. So I've been in sales and recruiting for about 25 years now, in a couple of different markets. I started back in 1997 up in New York City and was there for about 10 years and then went south and came down to Jacksonville, Florida. And I've been here in Jacksonville for about 14 years now, all within the recruiting space, selling recruiting services on the engineering side. I was with a very, very big national firm for about 22 years and then opened up my own firm, Highlander Consultants, just a couple of years ago.
Cool. What's it like being on your own?
It's awesome. No 7:30, team meetings. I get to work from home as well as go into the office whenever I want. I get to, thankfully pick my own clients and go after the business that I want and make my own hours,
Yeah.
so it's great. And then of course I get to, keep most of the revenue, which is great.
Well, recruiting has always been, or at least when I found out about it, one of the things that I kind of always thought I could do. Because when I talk to salespeople, the frustration really isn't with the selling, it's with working for someone else.
Right.
It's the BS of the company, the meetings, the admin, the reports, the silliness.
Oh my gosh, you're right. You're exactly right. And it is very, recruiting is very similar to sales.
It is sales. It's a
It is.
two-sided sale. It's more complex and sometimes because the product or the person you're selling hasn't committed to doing anything.
That's exactly right. And you've got to, especially in an economy like right now, you've got to sell the job and the company to the candidate. Whereas, in tougher times, like maybe after 9/11 or 2008, 2009, you had your pick of candidates out there. Nowadays, especially within the technical and the engineering space, which is where I am, it's so hard to find good quality people right now. And they are, the candidates are being very, very selective, you know. So you're right. It's a dual sales role in that you're, having to sell to candidates as well as trying to sell to companies and try to land them.
And what have you learned along the way is from the sales perspective of what works? What were some of the epiphanies? Because it's also a tough sale because it's
Right.
brand. You really don't have brand. You have relationships. They either know you or don't know you.
You're exactly right. I'm a big fan of the KISS method, just keep it simple, silly, or, stupid. And I just would follow a system and heavy activity, lots of phone calls, obviously do all your good research on the front end, make sure you're finding out good engineering, manufacturing companies to call, and then going after the decision makers. Making tons of phone calls, obviously trying to set meetings with them, getting them outside of the office is always key, developing that relationship with them when they're not in the office, trying to get them out for meals, out of office type of, happy hours, whatever you can do to get them away, to get to know you a little bit better as well. And then activity, just keep doing it over and over and over again. Be consistent. A couple of things that I think I did early on was I would call a lot of decision makers at 7 o'clock in the morning, and a lot of managers, directors, and VPs, they were at their desk and are at their desk before the gatekeepers come in, before, any of their staff come in, and they're trying to get whatever work done that they need to get done. So you get them on the phone at 7 a.m. Number one, they're surprised anybody's calling them that early, right?
Yeah.
And then number two, you've got their attention for a few minutes. Make sure it counts and find out as much information as you can to try to make that sale. And typically for me, and with the way I was taught, was to get that first meeting. If you know that they're going to use agencies or staffing firms, get that first meeting with them. And that was the sale at first. If you can sell them enough in that cold call to get that introductory meeting, then you are 50% of the way there. And then once you get to meet them and obviously get to know them better, they're not going to have needs right away. Maybe nowadays they're going to have needs right away. It's crazy right now, the recruiting industry, but continually seeding them, getting them out to lunch or a meal if you can, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever, on a monthly basis to continue to develop that relationship so that when they do have a need, they've got that trust in you to help them out. And then, of course, the flip side is you've got the need now you got to go fill it, and recruit.
And because on the sales side, you could sell a great salesperson even when there wasn't a need.
Right.
Can you do that with engineers, or is that not as flexible?
No, you can. So I'll go back to even like right after 9/11, or even, most recently with COVID and back in 2008, not many firms were hiring. And so and nobody wanted to meet me. They're like, Chris, I'm laying staff off left and right. What do I need to meet you for? I'll call you in another year or so. And so my sell was to them, hey, I understand, hey, I've been through, these economic downturns, multiple times, as I'm sure you have as well. But we know it's going to turn, and we know that you're going to get busy again. What I'd like to do, though, is come and meet with you, figure out what you've liked before in working with vendors like myself and what you haven't liked, so that when you do have that need, you feel that much more comfortable and confident in giving me a shot. And then that was how I would, try to, navigate, through some of those tougher economic times.
And is the market ever close to even with supply and demand? Because it always seems way out of whack one way or the other.
It is usually out of whack one way or the other. Usually, though, like right after the .com and 9/11, things started to pick back up in 2003, and I think the term was cautiously optimistic back then, and then again in 2010 and 2011, and those were kind of, and then even now 2021, firms are starting to come out of that that doldrum, if you will. And that's the time for, firms like mine to be striking,
Yeah.
and making sure that you're delivering and that you're ready, for, your firm to be coming out of, these economic issues.
And what motivates you
Hmm.
as a seller?
Yeah, great question. So, what's always really motivated me over the years has really changed. Back in when I first started selling in New York City and in 1997 and 98, was I just wanted to be great at my job and wanted to earn, a great bit of money, try to be successful and continue to get promoted within the firm that I was working for. And then once I started having a family, then the big motivation for me was to take care of my wife and kids, so that my wife wouldn't have to go to work and I could be the sole breadwinner, and of course be a great example for my children. Now that my children are all grown up, and now that I've got my own firm, I I really want to try to please as many of my old clients as possible right now. You know, I'm doing the best I can at that right now, but I want to grow and I want to move into other markets. I'm only in Jacksonville and in Tampa right now, but I want to move into other cities. So every phone call I make, every meeting I go on, I'm always keeping that, you know, in the back of my mind that, hey, what are you doing right now to help you grow then that next office that you want to open up?
And were you always 100% commission?
No, with you know, the first firm I was with Aerotech, it was you know, you would get a minimal salary, and then you know, the majority, you know, of your earnings were commission. You know, I never relied on my salary except for 2008, which was a really tough time, and thankfully we had that salary there to help out. But the rest of, you know, the years, you don't live on your salary, you live on your commissions for sure.
Because when I was working for other people, I loved the base salary. And I've
Free
turned
money.
down some jobs I shouldn't have turned down because of base salary. And then when I went out on my own, you know, because I was always scared of that, like first year, that ramp year. Will it work?
Right,
You know, am I in over my head? Is it too early? Am I in the right space? Will I even like doing this?
right.
But
Yo, you
once you make it, you're like, that was dumb. That
right.
held me back. That did not help me.
Right. You're exactly right. I
And
started Highlander in October of 2019. And then, you know, 6 months later, COVID hits. And, you know, my wife was like, hey, man, what are you going to do? You know, and I said, we're going to come out of this. I said, you know, I know it's a pandemic and everybody's going nuts right now, but I had faith that things were going to turn around. And, you know, thankfully here and luckily here in Florida, you know, things opened up pretty quickly. You know, we were pretty much just shut down for a few months, a couple of months. And I had a lot of clients that still had those needs. And they came right back and said, all right, Chris, we're open. Florida's open. We're open. Go get us some engineering talent. And I've been crazy busy since summer of 2020.
because when I talk to sales reps versus entrepreneurs, the difference, it's so crazy because reps, they're kind of comfortable, you know, and I go, that is killing them. Then you talk to an entrepreneur and it's like laser focused, the questions, they're prepared, they want to get the most out of it. There's a goal and they test you and they push back. And that's why I try and coach sales reps. Think like a salespreneur. Yes, you work for a company. Yes, you have a manager. Yes, you have a base salary, but you work for yourself
Right.
and use all your time, your focus, your energy on that because the upside is not your base salary. The upside is, oh, I got another 5K. No, with your
Right.
upsides on your OTE, on your, you know, your accelerators. And that's where all the fun is. That's where the excitement and all the gold is. It's not being a B player, you know, scraping by to maybe make your quota. You
Right.
want to be the one crushing it. And if you think like an employee, you'll never make it.
Right.
You'll
No.
have pretty reports. You'll be the first in for the meeting. You'll bring the donuts. You're hosting the birthday parties. You're the captain of the softball team. That's fine, but that's not what's going to get you, you know, to President's Club.
That's right. No, definitely not.
Did you always have that mindset, or because recruiting is pretty close to that mindset? It's much.
Yeah, you know, and Aerotech did a really good job of instilling sort of that mindset in you, and you had constant reminders all around you. Hey, if you want to do well and succeed here, you've got to hit certain goals every year, and the goal was to get to Cancun. That was the big, you know, incentive trip. And you got to see your peers hitting. It was called the contest, and you got to see your peers all around you going to Cancun. And I remember the first year I was in sales, and half the sales team was gone because they were in Cancun, and I'm like, that's going to be me next year. And then thankfully, through all the hard work and perseverance and persistence, I went to Cancun for like 15 years of my time at Aerotech. So that was always another, obviously motivator. You want to be, in Cancun on the beach, celebrating and enjoying, your wins.
And I've worked with a lot of recruiters through my career because it was always, that's how you got a job, the best jobs. Right. And I always put energy into building a relationship with them, even if I wasn't in market, either hiring or looking. I point them in directions of good people that I knew who were.
Right.
And there was kind of, at the very best, they were very focused on not wasting their time. Like, they would not put a candidate in just to put a candidate in. They wouldn't send resumes just to show effort.
Right.
They'd really dig in, what are you looking for? This person, and they put up the objections first. This person, might need to work from home 2 days a week.
Right.
Right. Or they don't like to travel, or they don't like this, but their reputation is really good at the thing that you want. And then there were other people who would just put the parade, like block off Tuesday, I'll send 10 people.
Oh, geez. No way. I can't do that.
The first time you're one of those 10 people, you're like, I'm never doing this again. It's like,
right.
Yeah, it's like one of those shows on TV where you're just auditioning. Come on in. They don't read the resume. They don't know what they're looking for. It's like, tell us about yourself. And you're like, oh.
And that's horrible. Yeah. I like you were saying initially, Brian, you've got to put that time in to really understand your candidate and what they're looking for, why they want to leave, their current job. And then vice versa, you need to understand that much more about your client company that you're trying to help with, finding out about, hey, why is this opening open? Is it a revolving door over there? What's the culture like? What's the manager like? What's their leadership style like? And so a lot of that homework and hard work is all done on the front end. And I would rather call up a company or a target firm that I'm trying to work with to make a client. I'd rather call them and tell them, hey, I'm sorry, I don't have anybody yet. I'm not going to waste your time with, just throwing something against the wall and hoping it sticks. I'm going to go back to the drawing board, continue to recruit. Hey, I've got a couple of good people that I like that I'm talking to next week, but I have nobody yet. Yeah. And I let my clients know that even more so right now, just because it is so hard to find good, talent. It takes, what might have taken 2, 3, 4 days to find a good quality engineer takes a couple of weeks now.
Easy.
And longer, so I make that, I communicate that up front with a lot of my firms that I'm working with.
And do you work on contract or contingency, or both?
So when I first started my business, I thought I was going to get a plethora of contract opportunities because that was my main focus at Aerotech. But now that I've had Highlander, I've only had a few contract openings, and they've all been permanent placement. 99% of them have been permanent placement with my clients.
Yeah. And do you care? Would you prefer the contract or?
There's pluses and minuses with both. I think at the end of the day, there's a little bit more homework and a little bit more sweat equity involved on the contract side versus a direct placement. and there's also a little bit more selectivity from the client on the permanent side versus a contract employee. At this stage, I probably enjoy doing more permanent placement than anything.
Yeah. And when you work with younger recruiters, what do you see them doing wrong?
They're impatient. They want to squeeze a round peg in a square hole. Or that's vice versa, right? Square peg in a round hole. And I had to learn that too when I was a young rep. You got to be patient, follow the system. You're going to find the right candidate. Don't force it. And of course they want, the younger folks, they want everything right now. Without having to put in that hard work and that sacrifice.
And do you focus mostly on getting an opening, getting a requisition? Or let's say you had a week to do whatever you wanted. You got plenty of money coming in. It's just an experiment. Would you do it getting a placement or building a network of connections with the engineers?
It would be recruiting and making the engineering connections. Thankfully, I've done a really good job down here in Jacksonville and New York as well. But I live and work in Jacksonville and have been here for almost 15 years. So I've got a nice network of clients, and those needs will continue to come. It's, do you have candidates, Chris? And usually the answer is no, and I've got to go out and find them. So I would say since last summer, 85–90% of my time has been spent recruiting.
Because if they're out of a job, they're not going to be out of a job for long.
Right. But then you got to ask yourself some other questions
Why
too.
are they out of a job?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And obviously, there are circumstances, for some of these folks. And I dig in on that. And I look for, those red flags. But for the most part, they are working, and you've got to, figure out how to peel them away.
And are these software engineers or different type of engineer?
Oh yeah, all different kinds. Software engineers, hardware, electrical, mechanical, manufacturing. Biomedical has been crazy from the medical device perspective. It's been nuts.
And how do they like to be approached? Because they're not social butterflies, right? They're not.
You would be surprised nowadays. There are still quite a few extroverted engineers out there. A lot of them, though, especially the millennial generation, they love for you to reach out on LinkedIn, email them, don't call them at work. Then a lot of them don't like that. But I would say, yeah, the initial shot is, trying to get them on LinkedIn or track them down electronically somehow.
Yeah. And do you see your business? Do you want to be the sole proprietor, or do you want to build an
Great question. Yeah, I do want to build and and offer up not only profit sharing, but ownership as well, and then eventually try to sail into the sunset one of these days.
You're already 60s. There, man. You get this, not in age, but in sun.
Right. Oh yeah. You're right. You're exactly right.
A lot of people are heading there too, huh?
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's unbelievable. I just read this crazy stat about Jacksonville. We had, in 2010, we had 900,000 people. And then with the most recent census numbers, we're at 1.6 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's good. It's good for me.
Well, it's a great little
recruiting.
town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
It's it doesn't have like the huge condos that Miami does and the crowds.
And the blue hairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got,
Right. It's not just the over 80 crowd.
right. I think our average age is 35 here in Jacksonville. So much different.
And if you were to talk to, the 25-year-old you, where you had all the energy, but not the ability,
Right.
what ability would you teach that person?
Yeah, probably patience and belief. Like be
Which is
patient.
confidence, right? That's
Yeah, you're exactly right. It'll come. It's gonna come. Just keep doing the system and it will happen. I probably would also tell myself, go out on your own a lot sooner. Don't wait so long.
yeah, probably the biggest mistake of my life. Yeah. And
Yeah,
probably thought about it 20 years before I did it.
right.
But it keeps you hyper focused and there's nobody to blame but Mr. Me.
Yeah, that's right. Nobody to blame but yourself.
Right.
That's
Because
usually how it is.
the whole time I worked for other people, there was always, oh God, my territories change. All these things I don't have control over.
Right.
And that, the comp plan being reset every year, going from 15% commission to 3,
Yep.
all of those things. It's like, even now I go, I have nobody to blame but myself.
That's right.
I can
You're
hire
exactly
people to do
right.
the crap I don't like. And there's so many things that are available to reps today that weren't even 10 years ago on technology, outsourcing, all the things that we don't like to do. Reps should be crushing it now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And yeah, I always hear your um conversation about, I think it's co-video
Yeah.
you mentioned. So I just started using a service and it is awesome. I love it. It's a great way to get new candidates and obviously new clients too. So it's fantastic. And that's that technology, we didn't have 10, 15 years ago.
Right. I was talking to a CRO yesterday and just doing, videos, whether it's, co-video or whatever, connecting with other people. Nobody wants a commercial.
No.
Everybody, in your business, you have the best topic in the world, their career, right?
Right. Yeah.
They all have a story. They all have a future. They all care about it like nothing else.
Exactly.
And no one wants to hear about it. Right? The spouse doesn't want it, except for you.
Right. Except for me. I'll listen to you. I am listening. I am listening. Absolutely.
And on the other side, the hiring managers, they want the best people and they hate wasting their time.
Right.
Because they pick up the phone and they get an hour interview with some dolt and they're like trying to get off as soon as they can.
Oh yeah.
And you're attached to it.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Chris sent me a dud. What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you doing, Chris?
Now, is that a big, because like engineers typically aren't great salespeople, or they may show up with the interview, well, tell me why I should take this job, as opposed to why you should hire me.
Right.
Is there a lot of education there with?
There is. And you know what? Some of them I've noticed they have taken so much more time and care, especially some of the more new recent grads. It's pushed upon them earlier within school and as they get closer and closer to graduation. Hey, all right, you got this great degree. What are you going to do with it now? What sort of preparation are you doing, to land that next, to land your first job? So I noticed they practice whether it's, a Zoom interview like this, or they, get together with their other graduates and try to figure out, hey, what are you doing to land a job? And then, of course, every university nowadays has got a career center where you've got professionals trying to help out their recent grads as well as alumni, with continuing to stay, employed. But then I'll also help them too. Like, I notice a lot of not a lot of candidates, but a few candidates will say those filler words like, or, and I'll point it out when I'm in a, face-to-face with them in my office, or I'm on a Teams video with them. I'll say, hey, are you open to some constructive criticism? And who's going to say no to that? And I'll let them know, hey, you said, about 28 times. And a lot of times they'll just say, hey, I didn't even realize that I did that. Yeah. And, they appreciate, that feedback. And then the next time I sit down with them or that I talk to them, they'll say, hey, Chris, did you notice I only said, a few times? And I'll say, absolutely, great job, and help them prepare that much more for that next interview that they have.
Here's a little hack that'll save you time. You can record the mock interview. Okay. Put it into Otter, which is free, otter.ai. Export the text and then put it into Grammarly. And just because Grammarly will highlight all the mess. Like, actually, really all these kind of overused words that we have been inserting and no one cares or notices anymore because they're everywhere. And then Grammarly will show it to you. And it's better than all of those conversational intelligence products.
Right. Oh, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll take you up on that for sure.
It's free.
It's free.
And it's not you saying it. It's like,
that's right. It's an authority, a site saying that to them.
Right. Because the engineers, it's all AI. So they'll love that part of it.
Right. Right. Thank you. That's awesome.
Hey, Chris, I appreciate your time today. Where can people go to learn more about you and your business?
They could go to highlandertalent.com. And then, of course, I'm on LinkedIn. Not just my site, but Chris McCauley. I think I'm Christopher J. McCauley on LinkedIn.